Hello, everybody, and welcome to an episode about Drue Fowler. This is going to be his interview. This is definitely not the second time we did this because dumb stuff. But the goal of today's podcast is going to be taking Drue out of the commissioner role and putting him in the league interviewee and league participant role. So we're going to start off with who is Drue Fowler?
Are you asking me? Who am I?
No, I'm asking the third person who's not here. Who are you?
Okay. Well, is this my cue to go?
Give the high school, you just got in front of the class. You need to introduce yourself. You're the new kid from Switzerland.
I guess, fun fact, I did that a lot growing up. I was never out of school for more than 3 years of my life.
Should be an expert at it.
Yeah, exactly. So, a lot of you probably do know me. For those of you who only know me via this fantasy league, I am your commissioner. Of course, I'm not role-playing a commissioner during this interview, I guess, but my name is Drue. I'm a big baseball fan. I'm a St. Louis Cardinals fan. I was born in New York. I grew up in St. Louis during my formative sports years. Kind of sucks as a baseball fan because my teams are the Yankees and the Cardinals, given those two locations, and I get a lot of heat for it. But I feel a little bit justified. Derek Jeter was my favorite player growing up. My whole room was covered in Derek Jeter stuff when I was younger. And I have an entire page of baseball cards, which I still avidly collect today, dedicated to special Derek Jeter cards. Always, kind of root for the Yankees and Jeter, and then the Cardinals. Obviously, my favorite team today that I root for. I mourn the loss of NL baseball, as I'm sure the rest of you guys do, going into this universal DH this year. But it's not going to stop me from rooting for the Cardinals. We should be, I'm hoping, a contender. This year, we made a couple of small moves.
Well, let's hold off on baseball. We're going to get to baseball.
Sure.
We want the personal stuff about Drue Fowler. Where are you living right now? What do you do for work?
So, like our fellow league member who will interview eventually, Joe DeMonte, I also work at PwC. Yeah. So I work in international tax with them. I've been doing it since I graduated. I went to Ohio State, along with Ben and JD and Vinny, Adam and Ryan and Max. And now I feel bad if I forget anyone who went to Ohio State, but at top of mind, a lot of us went there. I technically rent a place in Chicago. I know a couple of league members have been there to visit me. But I'm not there right now. In fact, where you've seen me do a lot of these interviews is from my parents' new place that they just built in Wichita, Kansas. For those of you who don't know, perhaps the only thing that outdoes my baseball fandom is my Wichita State basketball fandom. You can probably read my shirt here on the screen. But I am spending a lot of time in Wichita these days with the new house. It's kind of just easier to live here as well.
So that is a great segue into the second question was, what's new in life? Obviously, the house and where your parents have moved and you're out there now, but what else is new in your life? What big news do you have recently? Because there's something I can think of, and I'm not sure you want to tell people.
No, it's fine. Ben's referring to the other kind of maybe major reason I'm spending a bunch of time in Wichita is because I kind of got a girlfriend here now. And for those of you who have
a girlfriend.
Okay. Well, for those of you who have known me for a long time, it's bigger news than it is for maybe the average person. I don't know. It's been a lot of drama in my life in that regard. And I know the only person who might be happier about this development than me is probably Ben, who's put up for, almost a decade with me of complaining about my girl problems. So,
Welcome development for sure.
That, and now I'm just kind of chilling here in Wichita versus Chicago. There'll be some Wichita State baseball games to go to. We got a AA team here. Sorry, I'm segueing everything back into baseball.
I know. I was going to say, everything really in your life relates back to sports. Just need to hold off. We're going to get there. So I have heard about this rice and bean diet. What's that all about?
I was just saying that. So as we were doing setting up for this call, right before I pressed the record button, I let out something that was audible on camera. And I was like, "What the fuck was that?" And I told him that apologies, but I started eating rice and beans for the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, this is getting cut.
It was as an homage
You can
to.
stop. This is getting cut.
I would. I don't know. I might keep it in. Just okay.
Yeah,
Maybe
I'm with
we're
you.
still talking about personal things. I played ultimate frisbee in high school and college, and during COVID, that shit got shut down because it got shut down because the ultimate frisbee community, which is pretty, let's call them liberal, were really all about the mask mandates and the social distancing and stuff. And so the ultimate community really wasn't playing ultimate at the time. So a few of us that had like played ultimates, some of us transitioned into playing disc golf, which is like closely related because it's a disc sport. And so I got like really into disc golf over the last year and a half. And
Are you going pro anytime soon?
I'm not going pro because there's actual pros that play disc golf.
I know there is. I saw the fucking clip on ESPN about that dude who hit that crazy shot.
Yeah, James Conrad, frisbee.
Yeah, of course you know his name.
Well, yeah, anyone who's a disc golf fan has seen that clip. Point is one of the best disc golfers in the world. He's absolutely jacked as shit, throws it further than anyone else on tour. He is a vegan who only eats rice and beans for his meals. I'm like, all right, not that I'm trying to improve my game or anything, but I just got back from a vacation and ate like shit for the last like week or two, road tripping down Tampa and stuff. I'm like, I gotta just do this for like a week or two. So,
excuse me. All right, so now we've covered the personal basis, and I'm sure we'll draw it back as we continue to talk about teams. But the first thing I wanted to talk about is I think the stuff that maybe people haven't seen or missed over while the season was going on, and that's your off-season moves, or at least the ones that I think play a role or are interesting. So we got a few here. I want you to explain to me why this trade even matters whatsoever, and that's Robert Hassel and Aaron Ashby for 8 BAM. Sorry, trades Robert Hassel to Adam for Aaron Ashby and 8 BAM. Okay, so why should I care about either of these guys?
I don't think you should. I think I care. I think Adam cares a little bit. I've never been the biggest Robert Hassel guy. I kind of got him in a trade that I had made earlier in the league's history as kind of a throw-in to another piece that was traded. And he's just kind of been sitting there. Robert Hassel, to me, is an athlete first, baseball player second. I don't really love that type of kind of makeup in a player. Whereas Aaron Ashby looks like Alek Manoah or Corbin Burns with otherworldly kind of spin rates on his like slider, with a great fastball that moves. And I just really like Aaron Ashby's potential as much as Robert Hassel's potential. And right now my offense is stronger than my pitching. And to me, Ashby being a pitcher that's going to be up this year to help, especially, I didn't know this at the time, but now in the wake of the Jack Flaherty elbow situation,
yeah,
I'm very
that hurts you a lot,
or maybe it's shoulder, whatever that is with Flaherty. I'm pumped about this Aaron Ashby trade. He'll be on my roster from the moment the season opens, I would guess. And Robert Hassel, he's a nice prospect, but he wasn't my type of prospect. I think he's much more Adam speed. I think I got a deal on that, to be honest.
Okay. So we're going to talk about another guy who I'm sure no one else in the league gives two shits about. Well, actually, maybe Ryan. And that's Xavier Curry. And the fact that you went and got him. What are your thoughts on Xavier Curry?
I don't give two shits about Xavier Curry.
Then we're moving on. All right.
Well, hold on.
Oh, so you do have a thought.
My thought is that I don't even have Xavier Curry anymore. He left my team for less than a month. I traded him as part of my most recent trade with Ryan Ulrich.
But recently, Ryan's been refusing to trade him back to me. So what do you think he sees in Xavier Curry? And what did you see in Xavier Curry?
Well, Ryan's like you. He buys into hype that he'll read something online about a player, one positive piece of news, and immediately like want that player for himself. He always falls for the hype. I'm not surprised. It's within his personality. He always wants to be the first to break the news, kind of the center of attention type of guy. So he's like, oh, yeah, I'm definitely going to get this guy that I just read an article about. And then I'm sure he's thinking everyone else is going to go Google that guy and be like, damn, Ryan's onto something because they see the same thing that he did. I don't fall for your tricks, Ryan. At least Bean's up front about it. He buys in totally on recent news.
Absolutely, I do. Absolutely, I do. I love nothing more than good news about a prospect.
Xavier Curry, I don't care. I traded him to Ryan. This is not a guy that we should be spending this much time talking about.
I wish I had him. But we're going to move on. Trades Matt Chapman to Sean for Patrick Sandoval.
Yeah, that was an interesting one. So obviously Chapman hadn't been traded to the Jays yet. In hindsight, I kind of wish I still had Matt Chapman because I do kind of have a hole there in my lineup.
Right.
But Matt Chapman really underperformed last season. He hit 210. He didn't have a great 2020 either. Really, I was sold more on the Patrick Sandoval breakout more than I disliked Matt Chapman going into this year. I already kind of mentioned with the Aaron Ashby thing that my pitching is like not very like.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that.
Not good enough to compete, I don't think right now. I think I'm one or two. Like I need a breakout season from like Brady Singer or something to really, really compete. But Patrick Sandoval is a piece that I thought had a great season last year. He should be kind of the ace of the Diamondbacks this year. Looks like great strikeout peripherals. I really like what I think I'm going to get from Patrick Sandoval this upcoming season.
All right. So on to the next guy, and I think you're going to really enjoy talking about this one. It's your boy, DL Hall. 25.
I was so disappointed to see the new MLB Top 100 come out. And by the way, this is recorded about 5 days maybe after that came out.
21st to be exact.
Yeah, so today's 21st. Yeah, I was so sad to see DL Hall actually fell a couple spots. So this is a guy, I've loved him from the beginning. Bean got him for $5 BAM. I probably overpaid for him. I think I gave 20 or 25 for him. 25. That's probably an overpay for a guy who's barely top 100 status right now. But I personally rank him as the third best pitching prospect in baseball, ahead of Jack Leiter, right behind Grayson Rodriguez and Shane Baz. DL Hall, lefty with a vicious fastball. His main concern is he's got a little bit of a walk problem and some arm issues, like injury-wise. That's super risky. It basically sounds like the profile of AJ Puck, who has more or less burned me. But I don't know. I think DL Hall, I think the potential is off the charts. His strikeout rate is like 14.9 in his career in the minors, even higher than Gray Rod's. And he's pretty close to the majors, assuming he like doesn't have any major setbacks with injuries. We should see him up.
I unfortunately think DL Hall is going to be one. I'm not speaking from zero, whatever you want to call it. I did have DL Hall. So, do you worry at all about his injury risk? I mean, I think this is really going to be a trade where you turn around and say you're a genius or you're an idiot. And I don't think you're going to have much of a middle ground on that. Like if you would have got him for less, then sure. But I mean, does him being possibly a reliever, the control issues, the injury risks, does that stuff scare you at all?
No more so than tons of other pitchers. I really think I think there's two pitchers that have ace potential in Major Leagues. I think DL Hall tops out as a 2 guy. I think the 2 guys in the minors with ace potential are the 2 guys I mentioned ahead, Gray Rod and Baz. Whereas everyone under that, I think everyone has reliever risk under that. The only guy who might not is Jack Leiter, but I also I don't buy his potential as more than a number 2 starter. I don't know if he has the stuff. But DL Hall, I think, just like Hunter Green, just like any other pitcher down there in the minors right now, could be a reliever. I think you're always taking that risk. So I don't. It is what it is. guys really like him as a prospect. I like that the Orioles are moving Camden Yards, the fences back a little bit to accommodate all this new pitching.
All right, so my next question. What substances were you on when you made this next trade? And I think you're going to know the one I'm talking about here. So that's Matt McLain, Drew Waters, Andrew Painter, and Xavier Curry to Ryan for Chris Bryant. Why?
I was at a bourbon bar out pretty late that night in person with Ryan after drinking at like a hockey game all day. So I wasn't in like, the most sober state of mind. I always say that I never regret trades that I make, but in this case, I do. I guess I should change that saying to be I never regret any sober trades I make. This one I do kind of regret. I definitely don't think I would have made it had I been totally, sober. But I guess what I'll say about it is it's 4 guys who might not ever make the majors for 1 guy who is in the majors, and I'm super excited that he just signed with the Rockies.
Why would you be excited that he signed with the Rockies?
Because that's a loaded offense and the #1 hitter's park in Major League Baseball.
Yeah, he's washed though.
At 30 years old?
He's been on the downtrend for the last 2 or 3 years. I mean, let's be real with
ourselves. The franchise he played with has been. It is what it is. I don't think I love the trade, but I basically traded 2.5 top 100 prospects. I traded Matt McLain, who's solidly bottom half top 100. I traded Drew Waters, who's I think he did drop out of the top 100. And I traded
Drew Waters.
So I count him as like half of a prospect in the top 100. And Andrew Painter, who I think will get there, but isn't there yet. So like another half top 100 prospect. So I guess that's only like two top 100 prospects. I don't think Xavier Curry ever will be. So
bold statement.
Two top 100 prospects for Chris Bryant, who I needed to fill that position after the Matt Chapman trade I had made earlier in the year.
I don't know how well you filled that hole.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
I don't have too many.
Hey, you already admitted. If you were sober, you might have done things differently. So that's enough.
Yeah.
All right. So we're going to segue that into filling holes on your team. We're going to go ahead and talk about your current team. If you want to go ahead and share your screen.
Sure.
Your current roster. We're going to be looking at Drew's team, not mine.
So what happened? I don't know what happened, but
big fuck up.
Yeah, it's like saying it needs permission to access my computer, even though it's done this a million times, like my microphone and stuff.
Well, we'll just keep talking. We won't let there be any dead silence.
I think we're good. I got it.
All
right. Window, Chrome tab. Here we go.
And edit.
All right.
So the first thing I want to talk about your team. You said it earlier. You think your offense is stellar compared to your pitching. At least that's where you think your strengths lies in your offense. But I have some questions about that. So the past 2 or 3 years, you were known as the guy with the best outfield in the league. Like nobody really could compete with the guys you had. I don't know if that stellar outfield is looking so good anymore. Can you explain it?
Well, I traded away Mike Trout. That's obviously going to hurt anybody. I traded away Austin Meadows. He would be looking good right now. But I still got Juan Soto.
That's true.
Probably the #1 asset in fantasy baseball. And I got Tyler O'Neill, breakout season, all-star last year. And then Avisail Garcia and Adam Duvall both had probably seasons that they're going to regress from. But, at the end of the day, they should just hopefully rack up some counting stats. Like these guys were really good in RBIs, 88 apiece. And Chris Bryant has outfield eligibility. Tommy Edman does. Whit Merrifield was in my outfield spot a lot. I usually counted him in my outfield when I was saying I had the best in the league. So I got some guys. I get that it doesn't have Mike Trout and Austin Meadows anymore, but this is still a top outfield in the league. Maybe not number one, but definitely.
Well, the way I look at it is, you're right. You've got Tyler O'Neill and Juan Soto. I mean, those are the two best outfielders on your team, bar none. But like you said, Duvall, Chris Bryant, Garcia, Tommy Edman, these guys are really kind of second-rate outfielders. I mean, I would think there are guys that are going to be on the free agency list, on the free agency pickup list, that are better than some of those dudes. Because I think Adam Duvall, I get it, he hits home run, but he's not a very good player. I mean, but let's be honest. Garcia, I mean, he hits okay, but 25 home runs is nothing spectacular for outfielders in the MLB today. I mean, it's good. Nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, I'm not expecting big things, honestly, from Duvall and Garcia. I think Chris Bryant's definitely like a better piece than those two guys. But you're right. I mean, it's not the glorious outfield I once had. I will say Tommy Edman. I've done this with some people recently, and I won't do it here, but just go look up the stats last year from Whit Merrifield and Tommy Edman, and they're basically the same exact player.
Well, okay, so this will lead nicely into one of the points I wanted to make, and we'll need the 2022 projection sheet for this one. So, I think your outfield is a microcosm for your whole team, where you have fucking tons of stolen bases. I mean, we've always known that about you. You love your stolen bases, but you're really down on power. Not a whole lot of runs, not a whole lot of home runs, not a whole lot of RBIs. I mean, those are three categories where, you're ranked almost last for a lot of those.
Whoa.
I'm serious.
Last according to what?
According to the projections that I made. And they vary slightly, but even if you pull up your team on ESPN and compare it to someone else's team, you have noticeably less home runs.
That's kind of crazy because I finished last year in the league in 7th place, solidly average in home runs.
Yeah, I mean, you're here. I'll pull it up on mine too, but I want to look at it. But I mean, on home runs, you are, well, Joe's worse, but we're not going to talk about Joe because that's unfair. But you are third last in projected home runs. And you're one of, I think, 3 teams that is under 300 projected home runs.
4 teams.
4 teams. Sorry, correct.
5 teams. 5 teams under 300.
All right, so you're probably sitting right in that 7-8 spot like you talked about. But, I mean, if you're going to be contending, that's pretty low on power, don't you think?
I do have some problems with your model, and I know you also understand that it's not perfect, but you're right. I don't have elite power. I don't think I'm competing for, top 5 in the league in home runs. I would definitely agree with that. And I also don't know if I have any prospect that's supposed to come up that's supposed to fix that. So that is something I would need to address, especially after trading Matt Chapman. He was a lot of my power.
Well, I just look at your roster, and this is not a shit on Drue's team fest. I hope that comes across. This is me just trying to ask questions about how I look at your team and trying to find answers as to like what you do to solve the problem, or if there isn't even a problem to begin with, or if it's by design. So one of the guys I wanted to talk about is Nico Horner. Could you not find a better second baseman?
I have. Those guys, dude, those guys are dart throws. Like, into the draft dart throws. Because who else should I be rostering that's available right now? Sure, I can make a trade, but then I'm going to have to trade from elsewhere on my team. So I don't need Nico Horner. My infield is Merrifield, Mondesi, who's slated to be the starting shortstop, so he'll get shortstop eligibility, and Bo Bichette. And Tommy Edman. So I don't need Nico Horner, but Nico Horner, there's a universe in which Nico Horner hits 300 batting average with 20 steals, at which point that's fantasy value. He might have 0 home runs. He might have 40 RBIs. But if he gets 75 runs, 300 batting average, and 20 stolen bases, that's an asset, especially with 2 utility spots now.
But don't you think it's a little overkill in the stolen bases? Because, I mean, you talk about your infield. I mean, out of the 3 you described, Merrifield, Mondesi, and Bichette. I mean, Bichette is really the only one who hits for powers, RBI, and runs. I mean, the other 2 guys didn't even hit 70 runs or RBIs. I mean, does that not worry you? For a supposedly offense-heavy team.
I think it's just all about having a solid mix. And like I said, I don't think I'm going to finish top 5. But if I'm league average in home runs and RBIs, and I'm above average in runs and OBP and top of the league in stolen bases, that's pretty good. Now, yeah. I'm sure we'll talk about it at some point. I'm not sure that's good enough given the conference and especially the division I'm in. But it's what I've been able to build, and this is what I'm moving forward with. It's not super old. This is sustainable success that I'm building.
Okay, that's a good answer. Are you worried about Gavin Lux, Alec Bohm, or Carter Kieboom?
Worried?
Very young guys.
Okay, well, I'm super worried that Carter Kieboom is now on the IL for 60 days due to an elbow issue.
Yeah, that
popped up just a couple days ago. Honestly, he's probably getting dropped by the time this podcast releases. Carter Kieboom will likely be off my roster.
We knew you well.
Alec Bohm, I'm holding out hope as, Wichita State alumni on my team. I'm kind of hoping Alec Bohm, puts it together. He certainly has the tools to do it. He just hasn't done it yet. And then Gavin Lux. So it's funny, you take those 3 names and then you also, throw in Chris Bryant into that mix as well. You got 4 guys that, as of 3 years ago, when we first created farm systems, were solidly top 100 guys. Yeah. And just, sometimes it takes guys longer to put it together. So I'm not saying any of these guys are going to be on my roster at the end of the season, but I would hope that one of them puts it together and has a good season. I think most likely to do that, to answer your question now, is Gavin Lux. So to say I'm worried about Gavin Lux is a little bit off base. It's more I'm excited about Gavin Lux.
Way to be an optimist.
Now, I do think that the Dodgers' recent moves, especially with Freddie Freeman, hurts Gavin Lux a lot. I think that's going to move, kind of probably Max Muncy, I would guess, the DH. And I would guess that puts Chris Taylor away from like a utility. I don't know, just the way that they signed Freddie Freeman. I don't know if Gavin Lux, who probably was slated to be a corner outfielder or a second baseman this season, I don't see that being the case. But I think he's the next man up if an injury happens, which it obviously will. It's baseball. So yeah, I'm holding on to Gavin Lux. He was obviously one of 2 big pieces I got back in the Mike Trout trade. I'm far from ready to give up on a guy who scouts saw was a top 10 prospect in the number 1 player development farm system, maybe number 2 behind the Rays.
Yeah.
I think y'all are sleeping on Gavin Lux. I think there's a lot there. I think he will sooner rather than later show everyone a 25 homer, 15 stolen base season, 275 batting average. Potential also.
That's a good player. So we'll have to see. But I commend you for holding steady and not listening to people calling you an idiot for that, because I know something about that.
I don't listen to anyone's opinions in this league on anything. The only person in this league whose opinions I respect are
mine.
Don Duong's. No, not yours. It's JD's.
So what does
I
Drue do
especially don't care about
about
Ryans. I especially don't care about Ryans. And he
Well,
was
trust me, there's gonna be a call out section later for you to
he was
specifically mention for some
saying
people.
he was more opinionated about that trade than anyone else.
Well, Ryan's opinionated about everything.
He just
All
likes
right.
to talk.
So, all right, I made notes not to mention this guy because I don't care about him at all, and I think he's worthless. But I know you were watching him tonight, and that's Lars Nootbaar. Well, let us know about Lars Nootbaar. Grade A baseball name. I mean, it has to be said. But in terms of his performance,
He kind of came out of nowhere 2 years ago to solidly cement himself in the Cardinals' plans for the future from a prospect perspective, despite never breaking into like the top 100 officially. No one is more of a defensive first outfielder, maybe a little bit Christian Pache-ish. I'm a Cardinals fan, and so I got Lars Nootbaar.
Yes, you are.
It's Lars Nootbaar, and he's on the Cardinals.
Well, that's okay. That's my next question. I don't mean to interrupt you, but are you pulling a max? Are you rostering too many Cardinals players in the way that he sometimes rosters too many Reds players? I understand the Cards are going to be a good team this year, so it's a good team to bet on. But
right, that exactly. I don't think so, and there's just some devil magic there with the Cardinals, and so I trust their process a little bit, just going back to Lars Nootbaar, like I'm sentimentally rostering him this spring training, and we'll see what ultimately happens with the roster because the signing of Alex Dickerson in the offseason for St. Louis really made no sense to me because they had Lars Nootbaar as a fourth outfielder. So if I was to project it today, we got Dylan Carlson in left, we got Harrison Bader in center, and Tyler O'Neill in right. That's pretty locked in. Lars Nootbaar would have been next guy up, potential DH, or at least him playing maybe the field some days and having like O'Neill, even though he's a Gold Glover, or Dylan Carlson getting some rest days and them DHing. I thought, there was enough flexibility there for Nootbaar. But then we go and sign Alex Dickerson. And on top of that, we have, co-prospect Juan Yepez as well in the system competing for at-bats this spring training. So honestly, what I've heard about Nootbaar now is during as a franchise to Oakland for one of their pitches because Cardinals really need some pitching depth, especially after the Flaherty news. And the A's are really just trying to get any prospect with every position being really open for them right now up for grabs. So I would support that trade. I would love to see Nootbaar get traded to the A's and have, a chance to play every day there. Other than that, if he doesn't get traded, I'm just holding on to him in hopes that maybe there's an injury and he needs to play, or maybe he gets traded to another situation. But that's the story right there on Lars. Got to hold on to him because there's no one else right now to pick up. May as well roster him.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, so we're going to move on to your active pitching squad. Now, I got to ask, what is this hodgepodge? It's just, it seems like a lot of guys who are young, unproven, but have the potential, and a lot of guys who are just really fucking old.
I mean, that's
I gotta ask, what's the strategy?
That's the name of the game, isn't it? You get the vets that are good. I got Waino, obviously. Corey Kluber should get some strikeouts. And then I got some relief pitchers in there too. But then I got the young guys. Obviously, Flaherty's injury is absolutely brutal. I don't know how many times we're going to mention that. I don't think.
No, we don't need to because it's just too sad.
But Brady Singer fits into the same profile as those hitters that I talked about above: Nico Horner, Carter Kieboom, Gavin Lux, etc. As a guy who now third season in the majors, formerly very solid top 100 pitching prospect. I think he peaked at like number 22. Maybe that was not how much BAM I acquired him for. Either way, he was top 50. I'm just excited for Brady Singer's third season. He was rolling last season until I was watching a game. I remember exactly where I was in Chicago, and he got hit with a comebacker off the foot, injured his foot, had to take a month off. Never was the same. Then had to deal with some arm troubles even later in the year. fully healthy, he should get back to the form he showed during the second half of his rookie year in 2020 and the first half of his 2021, where he was really good. I think that there's no one. I think he has that X factor in him. Like he reminds me so much of Adam Wainwright, but I won't, tarnish Max Scherzer's name. But some pitchers just have that X factor where they know how to compete. They can dig down and get play when they need it. And Brady Singer, just the way that he favors a sinker ball, kind of like Wainwright does. And the way he competes on the mound and his composure up there, I just really like Brady Singer's potential. I think he could be the ace of the Kansas City staff if he puts it all together. And then I got Alek Manoah. He needs no introduction. Y'all know what he did last year. I think he should have won AL Rookie of the Year. He's going to be tremendous this season. He should be pushing 160, maybe even 190 innings pitched, coming off of 130 last year. Super pumped for Manoah, and you can't see it on the screen. I'll scroll down a little bit, but obviously the ace of my staff, Brandon Woodruff. Like I don't. We don't need to talk about him on this.
Yeah, no, I mean he is fantastic. So there's nothing really to talk about besides admitting that. And then obviously we talked about Patrick Sandoval. I mean, you got Brad Hand, Chad Green. Your relievers are good, but nothing great. Obviously, Scott Barlow. If Kansas City is good, he's going to have a lot of safe cold opportunities.
Yeah, I think Chad Green too. Don't sleep on Chad Green. Yankees are going to be in a lot of close games. There's a lot of opportunities there.
Yeah, we'll see. I'd be more high on Scott Barlow than I would be Chad Green. I think the Yankees are a dumpster fire of an organization right now. But that's just my own personal take. I know there's going to be a lot of the New York contingency that disagrees with me on that one, but I think they're a poorly run organization at this point that is extremely inefficient considering the money they spend. And I know they've always spent a lot of money. But anyway, this is not the Yankees podcast. All right, so the next thing we're going to move on to is your farm system. So I actually need you to pull that sheet up now. Now, we already talked about DL Hall, so obviously we don't need to mention him, your love of him. But I think another guy that you would want to talk about is your man, Jackson Jobe.
Yeah, let me zoom in here a little bit. All right. You want to highlight Jackson Jobe for us. Okay. Well, what do you know about Jackson Jobe? I know it's my
absolutely nothing, but I'm going to pull him up right now.
How about what I know about Jack Jobe?
I would love that.
Jackson Jobe was the 2021 Gatorade Oklahoma High School Player of the Year, was ranked as MLB Pipeline's top prep pitching prospect going into the draft last year. After he went 9-0 with a 0.13 ERA, and hey, this is the part that's most unbelievable, because if you could do this in high school, you could do this at any level. As far as not walking people, a 122-5 strikeout to walk ratio in just 51 2/3 innings. That is the most insane thing I've ever read. 122 strikeouts in 51 innings, only 5 walks in 51 innings.
Now, I will preface it with this. We went to a rival high school as Andrew Benintendi. And, Andrew Benintendi in high school was batting like 450. He doesn't hit like that anymore. So are high school stats going to transform perfectly?
No, of course not. But Andrew Benintendi is a good major league player. And of course, high school stats, especially in the offensive end, and never translate like that 450 average. They don't use aluminum bats in the major leagues like they do in high school. But pitching stats, I'll tell you, the love to see there was the 5 walks and the 5 walks in 52 innings. That's really good. That's really good control. I love to see that. So he's obviously very young. I don't have a lot of this type of prospect in my farm system. I have a lot of guys that are closer to being major league ready. I've not done some of these dart throws, but I spent 30 on him. I felt like I wanted to get a guy at the top of this last draft class. This was my target. And, that's where we're at. I'm loving me some Joe.
So my next question is, what are you going to do about this traffic jam of shortstops you come up? To my count, you have 11 shortstops that will come up before 2024.
Yo, do you have
What
like
do
a
you plan
TV
to do
on
about that?
in the background?
Huh?
You have a TV on in the background?
No, it's fucking people blaring music outside my apartment from their car. I live near the hood.
Oh my god, that's awful. Yeah. Um. Okay.
It's a nightly
You
occurrence.
are not allowed to ask me about my glut of prospects anywhere.
Hey, it was
Given
just a question. This is an interview about me. This is an interview about you.
I don't care about my glut at shortstop. We have 2 utility spots now. If you care about position eligibility in 2022, this is just like the MLB. We implemented a rule change this year that's going to take away some of the strategy of the game. No DH in the NL, less strategy. An extra utility spot this year because all of you guys freaking complained about it. Not all of you, but some of you loudly complained about it. We have less strategy. Less strategy. So I don't care that I have this many shortstop prospects coming up. I get best available now.
All right, so let's talk about some of the guys that people maybe have not heard of, but that you've gone out and gotten. So one of them is Jeremy Pena. What do you
Heck
know,
yeah.
and what can you tell us about Jeremy Pena?
I'm so happy that you're asking me about Jeremy Pena because ESPN, sorry, not ESPN, MLB, the website who we pull our official FTN top 100 rankings from, listed Jeremy Pena just outside of their top 100 in the most recent update. As you can see from what's being displayed on the screen here, he is an older prospect, 24 and a half already, with Carlos Correa gone from Houston and them not signing Trevor Story or otherwise another replacement. Jeremy Pena is the odds-on favorite to begin the season as the everyday shortstop for the Astros. That's all I need to hear. That's all I need to hear. I look for guys who are coming up with an opportunity. So I'm excited. I'm excited to see. I don't know much about Pena. I don't know. Is he an offensive glove first guy? I don't know too much. I just know that he's the starting shortstop for the Astros, and that gets me feeling some type of way.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, that's a great position for him to be in. It's unfortunate that they lost that guy in Carlos Correa, but fantastic for his position on the Astros, obviously. But fuck the Astros. So who really gives a shit about him? Some of the other guys that you've picked up recently, Triantos, Henry, and Guzman. Obviously these are all later term guys, but I've never heard of them before.
Yeah, so to be honest, I'll start at the bottom of this list. I've already forgot why I picked up Denzer Guzman. I must have liked him at the time. Obviously, you can see he's very far away. 2026 doesn't really fit the profile of what I look for. But given how deep my farm system already is, I figured I should start looking at some guys further out. James Triantos was like the fastest riser last year during the end of season minor league baseball season. I believe he went in the MLB draft last year. Either that or he was signed like late, hit the minor league circuit, just ran train through it. He's quickly rising up prospect rankings. A lot of people believe he'll be top 100 sooner rather than later. So I just read a bunch of offseason buzz about James Triantos, probably the biggest number one offseason buzz guy that I heard about. So very happy to add him to the squad. Cole Henry is my secret. So small story. Some of you guys have heard it. When I was here in Wichita in January, I had dinner at this place called the Candle Club in Wichita. I guess it's probably one of the more exclusive establishments in Wichita to the extent that those things even exist. And I was dining with what would be considered Wichita State baseball royalty, a bunch of former players and coaches who had actually won the College World Series at Wichita State back in the 80s when we were an elite baseball school. We're still pretty good. But point being, one of these guys,
alumni. You can't say we.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. One of the alumni from that team, he has gone on. He had a major league pitching career. Injuries didn't allow him to fully realize his potential. But he's been a pitching coach for like 15, 20 years now, most recently for the last, I want to say, decade for the Washington Nationals. And he, I was sitting next to him at dinner and I asked him, I said, okay, so I'm in this fantasy league. I told him all about this league. I said, I need your guy. Like, who's the one guy you're pitching? You're head of pitching development for the Washington Nationals baseball franchise and have been for years. You got the goods on everybody. Give me a name. He said, Cade Cavalli. He's the real deal. I'm like, well, everyone in my league knows Cade Cavalli. Can't get Cade Cavalli. I said, what about Jackson Rutledge? He's owned too, but I could probably get him for cheap. And he said, no. Jackson Rutledge, he sucks. He is. He said,
damn,
he is
pretty damning.
He said Cole Henry. They picked him up out of LSU in the draft 2 years ago, second round pick, and he said he's got up there with Cavalli the best stuff. I think he said he actually has better stuff than Cavalli, but Cavalli has more of the demeanor on the mound. He said Cavalli reminds him more of Max Scherzer, but he said for pure stuff, said Cole Henry will be a major league pitcher probably for Washington. And he said he's super good. So got to get in on Cole Henry.
Well, I appreciate you taking your time that you could with these coaches instead of asking for a job. Spend it on the real valuable stuff, which is information for a fantasy baseball.
Exactly.
So, nicely done. All right. So as far as farm system goes, any other guys that you want to make us aware of? Like, I'm looking at it. And one question I really had, and we talked about this during my interview, which I'm sure I think is going to be released today as of this recording, that who on this farm system really has the opportunity to be an all-star going forward? I know that's a hard question because we know the answer.
I want to say Joe Bay, but he's so young that I would never even predict that.
Right.
Yeah, we did talk about this on your podcast just a little bit. I think Gunnar Henderson has like a 10% chance of becoming an all-star. I think, obviously, you guys know my thoughts on DL Hall. Dalton Varsho, only because he's a catcher that has the potential to get a lot of counting stats, and that plays well in the hands of fan votes. I think AJ Puck, if he's healthy, probably more of an all-star potential as a relief pitcher versus as a starting pitcher at this point. But looking ahead, he could be an all-star as early as this year, given every team has to have a representative, and the Oakland A's have no clear front runner for that distinction.
So I really guess this question stems back to, we looked at your team and you've got a lot of older guys on there, guys that are going to be phased out over the next few years. So, I mean, really, what is your goal of your team? What's the strategy going forward? Because if you're not getting these, prospect guys that are estimated to be Cy Young winners, of course, you can never guess that. But my point is, you don't have necessarily guys who are guaranteed all-stars, and no prospect ever is. But, what's the strategy for replacing guys like Adam Wainwright? Is that, obviously you've got Jackson Joe Bay, but you're going to have other guys.
Yeah, I got a deep farm system. More depth than high level prospects. But I got Ashby. He'll be up right to start the season. Clark Schmidt. He'll be up to start the season. Balazovic should hopefully by midseason he'll be up. Reed Detmers will almost assuredly be starting the season in the rotation for the Angels. Quinn Priester is going to be up sooner rather than later. I probably got a couple of other guys. Ethan Small already starting spring training games this year. He'll probably be up. So, yeah, for replacing older pitchers, because you mentioned Wainwright and even some older batters, I got some other guys in the mix up above, Jose Barrero and what's his face? Jeremy Pena's down there. So I have tons of guys who are on the door knocking already. I mean, I have a little bit of a glut, I guess, like you do, but it's not a worry of mine. I'm built for sustainable success.
All right. Well, I think that's a pretty good overview of where your team is at and what you're going to be doing going forward. So I guess it's time to move now on to it's going to be my favorite section because I always love to hear this. We're going to go team by team, and you're just going to give me a little quick 30-second snippet. Doesn't have to be 30 seconds, just about what you think about every team. And if you need to make some call outs, call people on their bullshit, now would be the time to do it. So
I guess I can go to
whoever you want to start with first. And you don't have to do everybody, just teams that you want to talk about or say something about.
Yeah, I was just thinking of the best way to get the teams pulled up.
I was just going to do it from the ESPN app and go to opposing teams and then just do it based on that.
It almost looked better for my phone, but that's all right. Okay.
So let's start with the man himself, the tank commander.
Is that Ulrich?
Yeah.
This man absolutely sucks. He blew up a team that was in the title game. Blew it up to whatever the heck this is. I literally, I think I mentally abused him to the point of trading that third baseman for the Red Sox, Rafa Devers, for nothing, in my opinion. I guess he got some stuff back, but he got 3 Orioles prospects. I think I am in Ryan's mind. I think this team is terrible. I am so happy that he will literally never
Everybody lives in Ryan's head rent-free. Everyone does.
Yeah. This has been the greatest offseason for Ryan Ulrich haters ever. I'm here for it. I love it. I will look back on this offseason with fond memories for Ryan just totally mentally getting outplayed by not only everyone in the league, but I think he played himself.
Bold statement. Bold statement. All right, so let's move on to the other Cincinnati guy. That'd be Max. I'm really curious about your thoughts on Max.
By other Cincinnati guy, I assume you're referring to yourself. One.
Yes.
Right. Okay, so Max. Let's see here. By the way, is Max's team showing up for you on the thing?
Oh, well, that could be a problem. I haven't looked. Let me see. Yeah, I have Max's team.
Okay. All right, so I think Max has gotten really lucky with having no farm system, but also the little farm system and young players that he has found and picked up include Jonathan India. Rookie of the Year Jonathan India, and Cedric Mullins as well. So, yeah, I think Max is a good team. I think he can compete. I love Max. I love Max as an owner. I love Max as a person. I hope he finds sustainable success in this league. I think he can. I'm excited to see. He's doubled his farm system this offseason. I was super happy to see that. But I'm looking forward to competing.
It's not hard when you have 2.
I'm looking forward to competing with Max this season for the wild card spot in our conference.
I think that's probably a fair estimate. I think if things go positive for you, a wild card isn't out of the question.
I think Adam for sure is going to win the division, and I'll give you my thought on who's going to win my division. But I think I think I'm competing with Max for a wild card.
All right, so we're going to jump over to my division. I want your thoughts on my team, and I'm going to sit here, and you're just going to talk.
I think your team has very little value, but it could work. Jarren Duran, there's a universe that Jarren Duran hits 280 with 35 stolen bases as the everyday outfielder for the Red Sox. There's a universe in which Alex Kirilloff bounces back from these injuries and reverts to the top prospect he was, and hits 255 with 35 dingers. There's a universe in which Abraham Toro goes 20-20 on the season, playing every day in a variety of roles for Seattle. There's a world in which Alejandro Kirk like hits 20 bombs as a DH for Toronto. Splitting time between catcher and DH with Gabriel Moreno and then, all the hitters they have on that roster. There's a world in which Jesus Sanchez is a good baseball player. So that, I'm not even going to talk about your pitchers.
Jesus Sanchez, I'm going to break my silence on this one. Jesus Sanchez is a good baseball player. So I'm not going to hear this later. Sure. But we'll move past my team because this is not what it's about.
Put it this way. There's more to talk about with the farm system. Obviously, I'm on record of saying I think Ben has the second best farm system in the league. I think that's still true. I think, unfortunately, Ulrich actually has improved his farm system a lot. I don't know how much a good farm system translates to consistent success in this league yet. That's been a common theme in all these interviews, is saying we don't know the winning formula for this league. We're all learning the same way as you guys. So whether or not this farm system and how you built your roster works out for you in the end, I don't know. But it's certainly interesting, and I'm super happy that you have your own strategy and you're going about it. I don't think you're going to be as bad as people think your team's going to be. I think you can definitely – you might be able to compete for a wild card spot, to be 1,000% honest with you.
Okay, so another team in my division that I know you have very strong thoughts on. Well, you have very strong thoughts on both the other guys, but JD's team.
Man, we're getting all the big hitters first. I don't like JD's team. I never have. He's won 2 championships. I get that. I think that's more. I think that's more of the fault of. I think that can be attributed to his extremely weak conference and then, random championship game luck and variability, more so than him having like an elite team. So look, I don't like it. I think all of these players, other than Vlad, who is appropriately rated as a top 5 baseball player, I think every player on this list is overrated, maybe not Benintendi. And the pitching is honestly just awful. My pitching is better in every single way. I would finish first place.
I would agree with you there.
I'd finish first place in this division.
All right, so the other guy, you love him. You love his team every year, but you say there's always something holding him back.
Vinny?
You don't even need to tell me who it is. It's Vinny.
Yeah, I love Vinny's team. I think his ownership, honestly, I'll be honest, hasn't been there. I think Vinny, if he fully commits to the season, I think he can absolutely win. I think he could be a sneaky title contender. I think this lineup is disgusting with all the right stats in all the right places. I think his pitching's good. I think his farm system's good. I think he's got good guys coming up now. I think he's got good guys coming up later. I think for a lot of teams you have to say, like for Max, a lot of stuff needs to break right. I don't even think a lot of stuff needs to break right for Vinny. I think Vinny just needs to manage his team like every day. I get that that's tough, and that's not the ask of everyone in this league, but it's there for the taking, Vinny, if you want it. That it's the freest wild card spot you're ever going to get, and you could even win the division.
Good luck. That's all I'm saying. All right, Mr. Mike Laffey.
All right, Laffey. Well, so Laffey's got a good team and a good farm system. Above average across the board, everything from B- to B grades. It's been enough to win him the division. Hasn't seen that playoff success yet, but I think he's got the players. I like his team. I don't think it's awesome, but he's got good players, and he like Max has found the key rookies and prospects so far in this league's history with Ian Anderson and Ryan Mountcastle, and then I thought there was one other pitcher. Who am I thinking? Oh, James Karinchak as well, who's probably been the best relief pitcher prospect we've had, up there with Class A. So I think Laffey's done really well with managing his not just his active roster and his team, but also his farm system. I would be shocked if Laffey doesn't win this division again for it would be 3rd straight year.
Okay. All right, let's talk about Joe DeMonte, the ghost I like to.
No, there's not much to say, man. You were injured last season. You missed an entire season of development, and it's a long road to recovery. But looking forward to it. I hope that we'll see some activity from you. There's pieces. There's some, there's a couple prospects in the farm system. It's not totally barren. He's got second most BAM in the league. And like I said, he's got some pieces. I'll say the same thing I said for Lappy, but the inverse. I would be shocked if this team doesn't finish last place this year. But we've certainly said that about teams in the past, and then they go out and win. So
let's move on to your division mates.
I'll say one last thing about Joe.
Okay.
I don't know why him and I believe Bandlord Dave, the two people who we would have considered the more inactive owners the last couple of years, have like the best relief pitcher core. And I think this division far and away is the best relief pitcher core in the league. They can steal wins with whip and Ks and save holes. Like,
well, if you can hold your head high and say I'm proud of my reliever core, then my hat off to you.
I'm just saying that's a strength. They can steal wins.
Yeah, that's true. Let's move to Sean. Mr. Ron.
Right. Sean. All right, this team, the only team that underwent a more volatile change this offseason was Ulrich. I'm scared to death of this team. I would have said until Sean made the trades he did, I would finish above him. I think I even directly contributed to this with the Matt Chapman trade, but I think Sean is my favorite to win the division today, right now, even over Jack. I think I'm competing with Jack for a wild card. I think Sean wins this division. I think he's going to have some issues managing his team from abroad. If you watch the Sean interview, he's deep traveling abroad for the next year. But he's been active in the group meet. Leads me to believe he'll be plenty active here to win the division. The 110, 115 win team. He'll be competing for the top seed in the league, I believe. I think his biggest issue is how tough the rest of his division and conference are. This team is so good.
So let's talk about that other guy in the division, Mr. Jack.
Yeah. I think after that, we just have one team left, right?
Yeah, we'll have Jack and Adam.
Oh, we have Bandlord Dave.
Oh, right.
So Jack, I think kind of like JD, or how I feel about JD's team. I think his team's a little bit overrated. I've never been the biggest fan of Matt Olson or Jose Ramirez, two of his more stud players, I guess you could call it. I still think Arozarena is a little overrated, but he wins. Jack has, kind of like you, Ben, Jack has his own system of evaluating players and making his team that's kind of unlike what everyone else does in the league.
Right.
And so, yeah, I don't think this team will add Julio Rodriguez. Okay. It'll get better via that addition, no doubt. After that, though, I just don't really see any help coming from the farm system to reinforce a squad that I think is not like, look at this. Brantley, Haniger, Donaldson at the bottom. Bryce Harper is going to be on the wrong side of 30. I think Teoscar and Rosie and Ramirez and Olson are due for some regression. Like, there needs to be some reinforcements here. I don't know if Jack's got those reinforcements. I think his pitching staff is great, but I think his offense is a little bit weak looking forward, and I don't even know if it's enough to win the division this year again. I think, like I said, Sean is my favorite there.
Okay, so let's
back for a while. Sorry to yell.
Yeah. I'm so offended.
Okay, I'm going to Adam.
Yep.
Yeah, this is the best team in the league. It's the best farm system in the league. We're all
old for someone who's never won anything.
We're all gonna be, slaves to Adam for the next decade, seemingly. Of course, you say that, and shit changes in an instant. Not just in fantasy baseball, but I've seen it in other fantasy leagues that I'm in and other sports where you're like, oh man, somebody's totally set up for success. And then one season goes by and you're like, whoa, what happened there? So, same thing could happen with Adam. Obviously, it looks very unlikely, but there's a universe in which Byron Buxton gets injured and never comes back. Trout is washed. Ohtani can't repeat his performance. Kelenic never performs up to expectations. Story moving out of Colorado kind of tanks, and Wander Franco is like a much better real life baseball player than he is fantasy baseball player. And next thing you know, Adam's only treading water slightly above average, makes some desperate moves, tanks his whole franchise, and we don't see a Jack dynasty for the next 5 years. But obviously that's not where the smart money is. The smart money is on this team dominating for the foreseeable future. So this is, in my opinion, the model franchise that we're all chasing right now. His window of contention, I think, opens this season, and very scary. Got to congratulate him for doing this, even though he was pretty lucky to have rostered some of these players before we even introduced farm systems, so he didn't have to pay any BAM for like Wander Franco, for instance. But, he's a fellow commissioner of mine. I look forward to competing with him. I'm not going to be crazy and say my team's better than his right now. It's not. I don't think my farm system's definitely not better. But you can never predict exactly what's going to happen. If baseball was played on paper, then, we wouldn't have to, actually go out and play the game. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, very solid team. Very good.
Okay, so lastly, Bam Lord Dave, the man himself.
Yeah, he certainly has a team. He's certainly a league member.
Yes, he is.
You wouldn't really be able to tell from his activities, but we just saw him make a trade the other day. I thought it was an awesome trade. You called it JD selling off like his, like a yard sale or something, or like selling off his trash. I don't know.
Sale, yeah.
Fire sale. I don't think it's that. I think a lot of these players actually fit Bam Lord Dave's team. He had a player retire in Kyle Seager that he ironically still rosters. I'm just noticing. But he's got these guys now, and he'll be able to cycle in immediately. Whereas JD got Musgrove, a good pitcher certainly, but not a guy who is ever going to be relevant when Bam Lord Dave can realistically hope to compete. Of course, as we just mentioned with Adam, everything can change in an instant, and this team could all of a sudden become really good. But he certainly has the assets to do something, given his amount of BAM that he has. He's got a couple of prospects, and
those are a lot of zero roster percentage. That's all I'm saying.
True. I mean, yeah, some of these guys are worthless, but other guys are. He just traded for like 6 guys. He traded one guy for 6 guys. That's an infusion he desperately needed. I'm excited to see how that works out for him.
Okay. Well, I think that covers all the teams. So any other call-outs, anything else you want to say, anything else you want to talk about before we end?
I don't think so. We're over the hour mark here, so this is fine.
All right. Well, then let's call it a podcast. Thanks for listening, everybody. Hope you've got some insights into the thoughts and feelings of Drue Fowler.
What are you drinking? It looks like piss.
It is piss. That's what I love drinking. It's Mountain Dew, you idiot.
I'm going to edit it out so it just ends with you saying that.
Yeah, okay. Well, here's my Mountain Dew for all the haters. If Drue cuts me out, It's
not like this part will make it in either, but okay.
I'll make sure it does. I have my ways.
All right. Thanks a lot to Bean for hosting this interview. We got more in this series to come. Thanks, everyone.
All right. See you guys.